here from Bouncebackability. So often in our videos we talk about mental health and emotional well-being, and I'm just really conscious that I think there's still some confusion around what we mean by mental health, and I thought a short video would really help put some context around the term and what it means for us here at Bouncebackability. I think it's a hard one because I think of late we more often can associate mental health with poor mental health and mental health disorders. And I still really think there's a stigma attached to mental health. So let's try and look at a more helpful way of thinking about mental health. Okay, first of all, let's think about our physical health. So if I have good physical health, it means that my body is able to do all the things I need it to do to function. It creates energy from the food I eat, it keeps my organs operating, it allows me to move and do many more things. Should my physical health deteriorate, it means that my body, for whatever reason, can't do some of these things. For example, even if I get the common cold, I might feel unwell for a few days, maybe a week, but often it will pass and I'll get back to feeling okay again pretty quickly. Or if we're exercising and sustain an injury, it may mean that we're not able to function or do the things that we were used to do in quite the same way. So this is the same concept with my mental health. Mental health is simply how we think, how we feel, how we behave. It's how our brains work. And it includes things how we handle stress or how well we respond emotionally to events, how we process information in the brain, how we learn, how we communicate with others, how we make choices, how we plan and organise our things. And just like our physical health, if it deteriorates, it just simply means your brain isn't functioning as well as it might. It isn't thinking or feeling, and then subsequently you're not behaving in a way that's helpful. So I think it makes sense to look at mental health on a continuum, which I'm going to share with you now, from what does the very best of mental health look like to what does poor mental health look like. So that very kind of top where our brains are working at their best, and we're in that best state of mental health. What does that look like? Well, I call it thriving. So what are we able to do when we're thriving? Well, in a state of peak mental health, we're able to see things really clearly. We're able to make decisions. We don't see challenges as challenges. We overcome obstacles. We're generally in what we call flow. So we're achieving more than we could do ordinarily because our brains are working at their optimum. However, it's not realistic to think we could spend every minute of every day in this place. I mean, for one, it would be exhausting. And at times, we're just okay. We function okay. Our brains work okay. We are not in absolute flow, but we are okay. But every now and again, we get into a funk and we get a bit unsettled by stuff. Sometimes the really smallest of stuff and sometimes the big stuff. And it just means that our brains, the way we think, the way we feel, the way we behave, just isn't at its best. It's a bit like having a cold, for my example of physical health. Maybe you've received an email from someone that has upset you. Maybe you don't particularly like the tone that someone has spoken to you in. Maybe you believe it to be disrespectful and rude. When our brain isn't working at its best, it means that we can overly focus on a situation. We start to overthink it, worry about it. And this leads us to be unsettled. And during these times, however brief, it just means our brains aren't working at their optimum. And arguably, therefore, our mental health isn't at its best. But it doesn't mean we've got a mental health disorder or that we even have to label it. We're just unsettled. We just don't think straight. We can't see the wood for the trees. We feel out of sorts. I mean, anyone had a day like that recently? Any humans watching? Now, often these times pass quickly and we bounce back. Well, other times we can feel a bit weighed down by it for a bit longer. For most people, we'll be between thriving, okay, and unsettled most days. Strengthening our resilience will mean that we can recognise we're in a funk or unsettled, and enables us to bounce back as quickly as we can be to being okay. However, there are times where people may not bounce back. Maybe life throws a few more curveballs, or more stuff starts to get on top of us, getting us further and further into a funk. And at this stage, it becomes harder and harder to bounce back using the strategies that you would normally use. So what are the signs that maybe someone you know or yourself might be struggling? A key sign is that day-to-day stuff, getting up, going to work, making decisions, becomes really, really tough. People may become insular and disengaged or behave differently to what is their norm. By the way, that's really important. It's about their norm and not yours. Maybe they're overthinking things, it's all becoming all-consuming, and they feel really helpless, hopeless, or even worthless. And this doesn't just last a day or two, this can last weeks. Now, it's not inconceivable that even at this stage, somebody could deploy resilience and eventually bounce back. But it's also a time to realise that they may need a little support to bounce back. This support could be a professionalist, a psychologist, psychotherapist like myself, specialist charity or GP, or do you know what? It can even come by way of talking to a friend or family member. I think it is really important to recognise there is a responsibility of an individual to realise when things are not right. You know, it's no different than if you found a lump on your body that isn't ordinary there, you would go and seek some help. At this stage, I often explain that your mind becomes like a knotted ball of wool, and getting help is a way of just getting some help unknotting the ball of wool so that you can gain clarity of thought again and get your brains working at their optimum. Do you know what? Sometimes there's a few knots and other times there's lots of knots depending on what stuff has triggered this and how long it's been going on. Finally, at the severe end of the spectrum is crisis. This is where the mind can be so muddled, so knotted that someone might be in what we call crisis, experience psychotic episodes, or even contemplating their own life as they feel so unworthy and helpless. Now, at no point on the spectrum does it mean that someone's broken. There are so many highly trained people, lots of resources out there that can help untangle the knots. However bad it feels, you may even feel that you can't even find the end of the ball of the wool, never mind untie the knots. So there we have it, the Bouncebackability explanation on mental health. I really hope it helps. Please share, as you never know who else it might help. And remember everyone, whilst it's okay not to be okay, it's always okay to reach out. Until next time.